Welcome to Search Talk Live with search engine optimization and marketing experts Robert O'Haver and Caleb McKelvin, powered by the Robert Palmer family of companies.
Welcome back to Search Talk Live. This is Robert O'Haver. With me today is my co-host Caleb McKelvin.
Yo, yo.
How's it going, Caleb?
Oh, man, it's going great. We've had an awesome month. It is Moz Month.
Moz Month, finishing out strong.
Yeah, we got the last Tuesday of Moz Month. It's been an awesome month so far, and we're going to kick it off, end it with a bang.
Yeah, I want to give special thanks to J-Lo, or Jennifer Lopez.
Jennifer Lopez, yes.
Dr. Pete. Let's see, Kelly Cooper.
And Fubui. Yes.
And we're going to top it off with the Wizard of Moz, Rand Fishkin. Rand, how's it going?
It's going great. Thank you so much for having me, guys.
Glad you're here, man. So we are going to talk today about content marketing and strategies. I see this a lot where bloggers and content creators, they all just create content to create content, but there's no real strategy behind it. And they're going, why am I not getting any traffic? Well, we're going to cover that today.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah. So where would you like to start, Rand?
Yeah, I mean, I think that before we dive into some of the tactics and techniques, which we should definitely do, there's tons of cool stuff to talk about there. I really feel like there's a missing element at the highest level of asking questions like, why are we creating content?
Right.
For whom are we creating this content? What business purpose does it serve? Can we create content that is dramatically and uniquely more valuable and more worthy of amplification and attention than anyone else in our field? Do we have a strategic and competitive advantage over other folks who are creating content in our industry? Do people in our field, or people who are our customers and our customers' influencers, even consume strategy for the parts of the funnel that we're trying to target in our market?
Right.
And my sense is that the answers to all those questions are sometimes not even thought about before people go and create their blog posts and put together their articles and their white papers and then start amplifying it and trying to earn rankings. And I think that's crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I've heard a lot of people, people I've talked to that try to get their content marketing strategy going, and to them it seems very overwhelming because I mean, there's a lot that goes into it: the planning, understanding your goals, who you're trying to reach. If somebody's sitting down and they failed and they failed and they failed, and it's feeling overwhelming and they're not getting the results, if they're going to sit down again and say, okay, let's cut this from scratch. Let's figure out what we're going to do, and let's totally change our mindset and how we're looking forward and the goals we're trying to reach. How should they be doing it? Where's the fundamentals, the foundation of which they should start?
Yeah, I really like beginning at the business goals. So in any organization, whether it's a small business, medium-sized business, an enterprise, a nonprofit organization, a personal project, whatever it is, you have some goal. For a lot of enterprises, that goal is, growing the business, right? Sometimes it's feeding new products and getting those in front of customers. Sometimes it's, trying to attract additional customers to a product that already exists. Sometimes it could be things around, experimenting with a new product or trying to reach a new group, a new target market for a product or a service. But whatever it is, at the highest level, the CEO and the executives get together and they say, this is what we're trying to accomplish this year or the next few years. And then those goals should flow down to the rest of the organization. And marketing is key among those, right? So marketing, I think, can't be disconnected from those broader business goals. Marketing should say, is content one of the ways in which we will solve the key problem or issue that we're facing in the organization this year? And if sometimes the answer is no, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe you're really excited about content. You can't wait to start, blogging. You can't wait to start putting articles out there. You're really pumped for doing video or visual content. Awesome. But if it's not the best way to accomplish the business's goals, put it on hold.
Yeah. Right. Well, that brings up a good point, Rand, is that if you're sitting down, how is a marketer, a content marketer, how are they finding out what their audience is digesting, what they're interested in, the type of content they're reacting to, if they're reacting to, certain things at all? They might say, okay, well, writing's not working, video's not working, or, we have this, content's going to be a part of this strategy. How are we going to identify which kind of content is going to have maximum results?
Yeah, and I think this is a case where knowing your audience intimately and understanding your audience's influencers and influences is critical to the process.
Right.
Absolutely.
So, this is the case where you should be doing one of at least a few of these, right? So I would say interviews, customer interviews with people who are already your customers, interviews and time spent with people who are your target market, but not yet your customers. Maybe they are customers of a competitor of yours, or maybe they're in your market, but they're not yet using a product or service like yours. And then conversations with people who influence those. That could be bloggers, it could be journalists and press folks, it could be social media influencers, it could be thought leaders or video creators, all those kinds of folks.
Yeah, and I think
those one-to-one connections are a big part of that. And then I would also have a bunch of data-driven information about your audience, which you could get from running surveys, for example. And there's a number of ways to get survey participants. If you already have an email list, great. You can send it out to those folks. If you can broadcast it on social, that's great. If you can get it through something like a SurveyMonkey audience or Google Consumer Surveys, that also works.
Right.
Yeah, and I think it's important to let people understand that content is not just written text on a page. It's videos, it's podcasts, it's you name it. I mean, very often, sometimes the product itself can be the content.
Yeah.
Right. And I've seen, plenty of folks in the marketing software space make their product their primary content. I think that a lot of tools that offer either free trial or freemium use very much are designed to be, the content is the product.
Yeah. Right. Now, as far as I know, a lot of people like to use content marketing for SEO purposes, building links, things of that nature. Is that a strategy that is going to be, helpful? Is that something you should focus on? Is the SEO return if you're doing things right? Or what should your mindset be towards that aspect?
Yeah, I mean, my sense there, and you guys might have a different perspective on this, but I feel like content marketing can be one tactic that you use in SEO. Mm-hmm. And if you decide that SEO is a primary channel, right, lots of people are searching for these terms and phrases, they can bring us very, very valuable potential customers and influencers, therefore we need to rank for them. Great. That means that SEO is right for your business, your organization, and to solve your marketing challenge. Pursue SEO, then decide, is content marketing one of the tactics that we should pursue? And sometimes the answer to that is yes, and sometimes the answer to that is no. And I think that, there's a little bit of a bias in the SEO world to just assume that content creation and content marketing is something you have to do and should do.
Right.
When in fact, for a lot of folks in SEO, especially when you have a very, very tight set of keywords that you're targeting, a very small set of keywords you're targeting, or you're a local small business, it may not pay to do content marketing. And instead, the right thing to do is invest in, all right, how do we link build? How do we get press and attention through links? How do we build greater brand awareness? And how do we get the pages that we already have ranking better?
Yeah, and I mean, also, indirectly, if you're creating great content and creating a good strategy around that content, those links come naturally.
Yeah, and I think that's a sort of strategic decision. Do I want to start investing in, creating content and then marketing that content and letting those links come naturally? Do I believe that's going to be a way to move the needle for SEO? And if all those things are true, then I think you can and should go down that path. But for a lot of folks, kind of put the cart before the horse, right? They invest in the content, they build it, they spend a bunch of time on it, they're convinced that it's really great stuff, they put it out there, and then they get very frustrated that no one is linking to it and tweeting about it and sharing it on Facebook, and they put their hands in the air and say, what's wrong? Why isn't this working? And the answer was, well, maybe if we'd done some research, we would have realized that there's not a whole lot of content consumption and sharing in your particular niche or with the customers that you're targeting. And so this probably was not the path for you.
Absolutely. If you're just tuning in, you're listening to Search Talk Live with hosts Robert O'Haver and Kayla McKelvin. We are here with the Wizard of Moz himself, Rand Fishkin. If you'd like to call in with your questions, you can do so at 855-722-0006. That is 855-722-0006. Please hit option 1, and our main man, Dave, will answer the phone. We'll get you on air. We're sponsored by the Robert Palmer family of companies. You can go to robertpalmercompanies.com and check out everything they have there. A lot of cool stuff, so I highly advise you to go check it out and see what you got.
Now, Rand, I feel a question coming on, and I'm going to go ahead and ask it for the listeners. But how does one justify the content? Like, is it traffic? Is it conversions? How does one project that to their up higher ups, their bosses?
Totally. So this is one of the reasons I'm really glad you asked, Robert. This is one of those reasons why I think it's so critical to tie your decision to invest in any marketing channel, whether it's paid marketing or SEO or content marketing, back to your organization's big picture goals, right? Because let's say the CEO says, "Hey, one of the biggest goals that we have this year is to get this new product." Let's say you're in the fashion industry, right? And we're going to start investing in children's clothing. We've never done children's clothing before. It's a new line for us. Therefore, we need to appeal to parents. And in order to do that, we think that, we've got our marketing team needs to reach this new audience that we haven't talked to before and bring them into, bring them to our website and into our stores and all that kind of stuff. Okay. Now that we know what the organization's goals overall are, we can then say, hey, what are the metrics by which you should judge any program, any marketing program that we invest in? And content marketing is certainly one of those, right? So in that case, the answer might be, hey, we're looking at sales and conversions and conversion rate, and we're looking at visits and attention to the children's section of the website. Right. So any content that we create for parents, does that attract people to our brand? And does that then create awareness around the products? And then how does that perform in terms of getting people into the funnel and actually getting them to convert and buy the children's clothing? And maybe we'd say, hey, the first 6 months or even a year is less worried about conversion and more worried about traffic and attention, because we're trying to brand build around this new topic rather than just try and convert people who are going to buy kids' clothes. So from the organizational goals, you can define, here's the areas we're going to invest in, and here's how we're going to judge those areas. This is awesome because then when you go to those higher ups, you don't have to say, hey, we invested in content, here's the traffic numbers, here's the sales numbers, here's the social sharing, here's the links, all this kind of stuff, here's our rankings. You can say, hey, we did this because you said, this was the strategic goal for the year. Here is the metric that ties to this strategic goal. That's how you should judge us, right? And everyone is already on that same page. You're creating transparency throughout the process. No one's surprised by the metrics you're showing or why you're showing them.
Right.
That makes for a beautiful, beautiful system. And generally speaking, gets marketers promoted instead of fired.
Yeah, right.
Which is a really good thing.
Yeah.
Very nice. Kind of one question I had, and I've seen this plenty of times before, is that kind of these third-party blogs you see like Medium and Quora and stuff like that, can those be integrated into your content marketing strategy? And if so, how often or how should you be using those to reach your target audience or have that as part of your outreach marketing strategy?
Yeah, this is so I personally have done a bunch of investing in Quora, and I've started to do some investment in Medium as well. And obviously, many B2B orgs, I think, are using Medium very effectively. And I've seen both B2B and B2C using Quora. This is one of those cases where I would say you want to go to that tactical plan and look at, is my audience using Quora? Do they show up in search results for things that our searchers look for? Are they attracting our audience, our customers, or our customers as influencers to them? Are they read and consumed by the audience we want to reach? If the answer to those questions is yes, then you should absolutely, unequivocally invest in those platforms. If the answer is a little bit, or maybe, or no, perhaps you want to put those things lower down on your list and start with other tactics that are higher up, right? This is all about, just like any form of marketing, it's all about going where your audience is, not where you want to go experiment because it's fun and interesting.
Right.
So, I think you can do that with your spare time or with your personal projects, but it'd be pretty crazy if, for example, if we're trying to attract parents to a kid's fashion brand, well, Medium might not be a very successful way to go unless we're specifically targeting, sort of a high tech, high income, coastal American, more likely to have one or two kids, generally paying luxury prices. Then maybe Medium is right for us.
Right.
But Medium's audience is different than the audience for something like maybe a Yahoo News or being able to reach folks through if I were in the kids fashion space, right, I would really be looking at things like BuzzFeed, which tons and tons of parents do read. I'd be looking at parenting magazines and book sites. I'd be looking at sites for I'd probably go into SimilarWeb and I'd plug in, a few of the domains that I know are attracting a fashion conscious parent audience. And then I'd look at what other sites do they visit. That kind of stuff can be really useful. And Medium is probably not on that list.
Right. Well, you can kind of take that same strategy to your social media, correct? I mean, if your target audience is more active on one, you got to understand which one you're going to be able to reach and which one's going to have the biggest ROI in your social media. And you can kind of, if they're not on, say, if you're B2C, obviously you're probably not going to use LinkedIn, but that's kind of the same strategy you need to have as well, correct?
Yeah, totally. So, for example, if I were targeting teenage clothing, I would be going heavy into Snapchat, right? How do I build a great brand channel on Snapchat? Because teenagers are actually influencing their parents and their own purchase decisions around clothing. But if I were targeting, small children's clothing, that's really completely up to the parents and totally their call. And parents, at least not yet, are not on Snapchat, right? I'd be going with Facebook. I might be looking at Twitter. I might be looking at Pinterest, which, Pinterest is a very heavily used site by fashion buyers. Yeah. So that audience connection to the goal is critically important.
Yes, absolutely.
Not to get off topic.
You mentioned Quora as well. I think Q&A sites, Quora is kind of nice. And a lot of these sites are kind of nice because you can just go and look in the rankings and say, hey, you could use a tool like Moz if you were tracking your rankings through Moz, or you could use something like SEMrush if you're not yet tracking, or KeyCompete or SpyFu, something like that, to go, hey, for this large set of keywords, what are the domains that rank particularly well across them? If you see lots of Quora stuff popping up, then I'd go probably invest there. Right. If not, maybe not.
Yeah. Well, another thing I kind of wanted to touch on, and in my own personal content marketing strategy, seen a lot of success with, and that's kind of the relationships with influencers. And I think a lot of people have a hard time kind of cracking that egg, getting in touch and building an effective relationship with influencers within their community that are going to amplify their content and really kind of help them out. If somebody's sitting there, how am I supposed to build these relationships? They might be a small scale kind of thing. How can they start building those relationships and effectively establish that communication to where it's going to end up in them helping them amplify their content, promote their content, stuff like that?
Yeah. So I would say two things. Well, there's two paths that I've seen be very successful. There's probably other ones that I'm not as familiar with, but the two that I have really seen work well are, one, you are extremely direct and you're simply sharing the content, and you rely on the fact that the content is so perfectly targeted, so useful, interesting, and likely to get that influencer additional amplification that you can basically rely on the content itself to do the work for you.
Yeah.
And I've had a lot of people reach out to me who I've never met before, don't know at all, and they just say, "Hey, Rand, I follow you on Twitter or Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever. I've seen you share lots of stuff like this. I'm pretty sure this will be up your alley." And I would say that a good 20, 30% of the folks who send me short messages like that are correct.
Yeah.
Right. That in fact, they really did produce something that is awesome and totally up my alley. And I am thrilled to share it. Right. Here's a big analysis of how, keyword rich domains performed against branded domains in search results. Oh, wow. That's hyper interesting. I'm definitely going to tweet that. I'm definitely going to put that on Google+. I'm definitely going to share it on LinkedIn. Right. Those kinds of things.
Yeah.
And then 80% of those folks have a piece of content that is not very good.
Right.
So, and so I'm generally not sharing that. The other way to go is to, as you said, build a relationship. And I think the best way to build relationships with influencers, at least in the era that we are in, is to help them. Help them long before you ask for anything.
Yeah.
And a good way to do that is to, this isn't let me email an influencer and say, "Hey, because I want to build a relationship with you so that in the future you'll do something for me, please tell me something that I can help you with."
Right.
That is not effective at all. But what is very effective is to pay attention to that influencer's content, to what they're sharing, what they're writing about, what they are putting out on social media, what they're saying on stage if they're speaking places, and then proactively say, "Hey, I know that Rand, for example, had this particular issue or was curious about this particular topic or was seeking someone to do this work. I'm going to reach out and say, hey, I know someone in that space and I'd be happy to connect you. Let me know if that would be helpful." Right. With no particular thought of return in the future.
Yeah.
And, doing that many times over many months and years with many people will build a great network for you.
Yeah, and also probably writing content that maybe you see something that's been shared a lot, and then you write something that kind of goes along with that article. Correct?
Yeah, I think that it kind of depends, right? If you are someone who's great at commenting or producing your own content that's provides significant value and a unique opinion or a unique take on something, I think that can really work well. And I've personally done that pretty effectively in the past, especially in the technology and venture capital spaces, right? Where I see a VC blogger write about something, and then I'll write very often a contrarian post about it, right? And saying hey, I think you're wrong, and here's why I think you're wrong, and here's my counterexamples and my experience and data. And often that can get a lot of interest, right? And that can start to build a relationship. It's especially if it's both respectful and clearly very high quality, very useful, very engaging, and adds to the conversation. But I have seen folks, I get this all the time where people, this is probably my least favorite, in my top 5 least favorite influencer outreach tactics. I bet you guys have seen it too, right? Where somebody emails you and says, hey, Robert, we included your Search Talk Live link to your Search Talk Live podcast in our latest blog post about 10 totally boring things about SEO, whatever it is, right? And then they say, we'd really appreciate a tweet. And you have this kind of like, man, really? You didn't actually write anything useful or interesting or value added about this. You're not really contributing to the conversation, and your goal isn't to present an alternative point of view or some new data and research. You're just trying to get me to share it.
Yeah.
That's why you link to it. And I think that is really obvious to most influencers and not an effective way to go.
Yeah. Right. There's an alternative motive.
Yeah, exactly. And it's weird because it's not just the alternative motive, right? That, I get that the motivation for a lot of people who email me their article is they're hoping that I'm going to share it. But when it's good, right, when it's something that's going to provide value to my audience, then it's a mutually beneficial relationship, right? They've produced something that's valuable. When I share that, it helps me get more amplification and shares and retweets on my social sharing, more interest in the content that I produce because I link to interesting stuff, more interest in the presentations I create because I talk about this cool blog post or piece of data or tool that no one's heard of before, and I look good to my audience, right? So that's a very symbiotic relationship. Mm-hmm. That works great. That's awesome. I think the problem is when the content or the tool or the service, the website that's being requested is not adding that value. And it seems to me that many, many folks out there don't have good instincts around this. Mm-hmm. They can't tell the difference between, I linked to Rand's blog post, so, he should share it.
Come on, man.
Come on, man. What's wrong with you? As opposed to I linked his blog post, but this doesn't add anything new. This isn't creating value. If I look at the last 50 or 100 things that Rand's tweeted, this is not of the caliber, quality, or interest level of the other things that he's shared.
It's got to be 10x.
Share it.
Right?
Sorry?
I said it's got to be 10x.
Yeah. It's got to be 10x, but it's not just that raw value. It's also the relevance.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't know. I get very frustrated with the influencer outreach thing because I worry that every tactic that we talk about for influencer outreach and influencer amplification gets just burned to the ground. Right. Someone's like, oh wait, that's a way. Roundups. Roundups turned into this horrible thing. I literally get 1 to 2 roundup requests a day. And I've taken to actually replying to them. For a while I was kind of ignoring or deleting them. Now I reply to everyone and I say, thanks for thinking of me, but I found that the vast majority of roundups are low quality and don't provide value to visitors. And so I'm opting out of participating in them. It seems like it's mostly just a tactic to get shares, right? I have a, Command C, paste it right in their response. And I send that off to folks in the hopes that maybe some of these people will go, maybe crappy roundup is not the thing that I should create.
Yeah, not to get into social media, but I do want to point out, like you were just saying, it's extremely important that you build an audience from your social media that is highly targeted to what you're selling or offering as a service or that type of thing. Because without that, you can't amplify it, because the people that if you're buying followers, for example, you can tweet, it's like you're tweeting at a wall, it's not going anywhere.
Funny story. The only reason that I've come up with recently for buying followers, and this is actually a legit reason to do it. So this is weird side note, but maybe of interest. So, my wife and I, Geraldine and I, both sold our books, or, got book deals in January of this year to publishers in New York. And one of the things that shocked me, so Geraldine had like a kind of a bidding competition between 3 different publishers.
Wow.
Which was great. Yeah, it was terrific. Her writing is phenomenal, clearly. And so one of the publishers actually dropped out of the bidding process, I think the first or second day of the auction, maybe second day of the auction. And the reason that they gave for dropping out was they thought that Geraldine's social audience was not as big as some of the other folks in the field that they had worked with in the past.
Oh, wow.
And when I looked, what some of those other authors in the field had done, I'm pretty sure, was to buy followers.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious.
Make their social profiles look bigger than they actually were.
Yeah.
But this publisher, was not savvy enough to go, into follower wonk and look at the engagement rate of, various Twitter accounts against one another. And Geraldine's Twitter engagement rate is much higher than many of the folks with 3, 4, 5 times the number of followers she has.
Right.
And so, I thought to myself, I was like, damn it, I should have gone on a Fiverr last week and bought you 100,000 followers. Right? Because then they would have stayed in and bid up the price for the book. But anyway, that small side note, but there are some ridiculous reasons why you might consider vanity metrics.
So, I never thought of it that way, but wow. Okay.
Neither had I.
So
I think we're almost too savvy.
Yeah.
We know how the system works, and so we don't think about gaming it.
Right. Well, you brought up the book. How's that coming along?
Oh, I was working on it yesterday on Memorial Day, and it's going slower than I'd like, but some progress. So it's interesting to go write about the past and try and see it for what it was, and be honest with myself about what actually happened versus this kind of the mythology we all have in our heads. But,
yeah.
So, Rand, is it a biography, or is it a SEO how-to, or what is it exactly?
It is. Let's see. It's something between a biography and a sort of startup tactics and advice.
Gotcha.
And there's a lot of marketing stuff in there as well, but it's. I would say all of the tactical and strategic advice that I give in the book is alongside the kind of history and story of Moz.
Nice.
So it's kind of here's lessons learned and things people can do from. Hopefully, my big goal with the book is to help people see the value of transparency in business and in marketing and in product, and to avoid some of the. Everyone's going to make mistakes in business and in startups and in entrepreneurship, but I hope that by sharing our story, you won't necessarily make exactly the same mistakes we did.
Yeah, you're extremely transparent, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, this is one of my big goals in life for sure.
Very nice. If you're just tuning in, you're listening to Search Talk Live with hosts Robert O'Haver and Caleb McKelvin. We are joined today live with the Wizard of Moz himself, Rand Fishkin. So if you'd like to call on in with your questions, you can do so at 855-722-0006. That is 855-722-0006, option 1. And we will get you on air with your question for Rand, or one of us if you have one for us. We actually did have a question come in through email, and I'll kind of put my own spin on it. But they're asking if a topic in your niche has been covered several times by competitors and everything like that. Should you leave it alone, or how can you figure out new ways to present that content? Or, should you just kind of steer away, or should you really figure out different creative ways to present it? And maybe there could be some good possibilities out of it.
Yeah, I've seen it go both ways. I think that, one of the things that I'd urge folks to do is, as they think about their content marketing efforts, is to go create that, sort of do that competitive analysis and audit, and then list out all of the potential topics alongside maybe some data, keyword research data that shows how many people are searching for it and what they think what you think the relative interest level might be, and then kind of have a column that is, how do we provide unique value around this content if we were to create our own spin on it? Mm-hmm. And I think that you can, especially if you have good instincts around content creation and the competitive field in the content world, you can actually build a column in there that kind of has your own internal rating of how well you think you might perform. So I've done this before with blog posts where I kind of have 10 or 20 different ideas of things that I might do. And one of my columns is, what I think my own potential is for producing the best thing on that particular subject. It's totally subjective, right? I'm not saying that you're using some advanced methodology here, but if you have a list like that, I think you can prioritize things by, hey, we have an idea here that no one's executed on before, or we have access to data that no one else has access to, or this topic has been covered really well, but it's a year, 2, 3 old, mm-hmm. and no one else has revised and updated it in such a long time that we think we could be the new leader because people are looking for more recent information and a lot of things have changed. So, you can, I think this is more about prioritization than whether to ever target something that's been competitively covered in the past.
Nice. Well, I mean, just from my own personal perspective, when you see a piece of content, what kind of, I'm not necessarily a checklist do you have, but when you look at it and you go through it and you're like, this content has it, like, this is it, like, this is what I'm looking for. Like, what's kind of those check marks you're looking for? Like, is it an emotional response, or, how are you looking through it?
Yeah, I tend to try and judge it the way the target audience would. And so that requires a lot of empathy, right? You have to put yourself in their shoes and see it from their perspective. So for example, let's say I search for luxury kids clothing. You know what? Let's just do that right now. And you might see, so that's not totally surprising. So the folks I'm seeing are Barney's, Neiman Marcus, Alex and Alexa. Clearly, I don't have kids because I haven't heard of it.
Yeah, I'm right there with you.
But Marie Chantal. But what I don't see in here is content. Like, I see a bunch of brands ranking for this, and that makes me think, you know what? There's probably an awesome opportunity for. So here's one. It's from April 6, 2014. I'm seeing it in position 9 for this luxury kids clothing search.
Right.
And it is from therichest.com. And the title is 10 Luxurious Clothing Lines for Kids. You know what? That's 2 years old. It's from a domain that, in my opinion, sounds horribly pretentious. It's literally called therichest.com. I don't have a super positive association with that. That said, you click on the article and I can see why it might appeal to luxury folks, but it does have a video overlay and a bunch of ads, and then a bunch of images that are not of kids.
Yeah.
As well. So I would totally bet that I could get on page 1, maybe even in the top 3, with a piece of content that was listing luxury children's clothing brands, rating them against each other, pointing out the various style differences, linking to all the right websites, that kind of thing. Maybe had some sorts and filters, had the ability to maybe had a map where you could plug in your address and see the nearest one to you if you wanted to take your kids there. Had like some clothing sizing stuff for kids, all that kind of thing. I bet I could get in there. On the other hand, what was I doing? I was doing a search for luxury hotels in Scotland earlier. And on that one, you know what? There are some excellent competitors, right? People who are doing a great job. There's a website called luxuryscotland.co.uk that has a great directory and is clearly linked to by a ton of the luxury hotels already there.
Right.
TripAdvisor's in there, Bespoke Hotels is in there, GreatSmallHotels.com is in there. So that one would be real hard. Like those folks are already doing a great job targeting exactly the searcher intent, kind of nailing it. I bet I could win on luxury kids clothing.
Yeah.
I have a real hard time with Luxury Hotel Scotland.
Right.
Okay. So, Rand, I want to switch gears a little bit here.
Sure.
I think we've covered everything on content marketing.
Oh,
right?
a lot of good stuff. And if you are
everything,
you're trying to rank for luxury kids clothing, you got a lot of good stuff today.
Oh yeah, I better watch out. There's going to be a whole bunch of domains that are
right. Yeah.
in there.
Well, before I jump to what I was going to jump to, I do want to ask you: what if you're in a really competitive market, such as real estate?
Yeah.
What would you do in that case?
My bias, generally speaking, when I'm targeting very competitive industries, is to go after an extremely niche segment that I feel is underserved. Mm-hmm. So, for example, in real estate, I might say, everyone is pursuing the same few markets, right? They're looking at homes, they're looking at middle and upper income, they are looking at major city centers. They're looking at the big markets. I would go to something like, what if I could put together a website that was in real estate, but very focused on rental and B&B style properties in upcoming rural and non-primary vacation destination markets, right? So places people are not very associated with. I'll give you a good example. We were in Valencia recently for a conference. Valencia is the third largest city in Spain, but has one of the smaller airports because they have a very small, it's not very touristed, at least not yet. Mm-hmm. And I think that would be a place where I'd go, oh, that is a market that has a lot of potential and doesn't have a lot of demand yet. And there's probably a ton of real estate demand for people who want to live there, but not yet for people who are thinking about rental homes and B&Bs and that kind of thing. Right. So maybe that would be a niche that I'd go after. Yeah. Another one that I would potentially think about is doing financial analysis of comparative financial analysis of real estate investment trusts and real estate aggregator stuff, right? So this is definitely a unique niche market, and not a lot of folks are doing statistical analysis comparing these yet, at least not outside of private hedge funds. So making that information public on the web could be really interesting for investors and for people who are thinking about building real estate portfolios. You don't need very many people to visit that site. You just need the right people to visit that site, and you can probably either charge some very high ad rates or have some, high cost per acquisition for customer lists, that kind of thing.
Right. Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, like target areas that are not so heavily targeted, and then.
Yeah. Right. I just like that concept of trying to find something that, if you're in a very competitive market, try and find a unique competitive advantage that other people are not yet diving into as heavily. And I think that there's always a possibility to do that, no matter what field it is. There's very few things where every single possibility is tapped. Maybe online education and especially, for online colleges and universities and like casinos and gambling, those ones are very, very, very hard even to find even a unique angle. Yeah.
All right. Now, what was that?
But otherwise, I think there's always opportunity.
Yeah. Now, I promised this listener I would give you a scenario.
Okay.
We have listeners all over the world. for some reason, were very popular in Australia and the United Kingdom. So
awesome.
This guy's coming from the UK, and he's asking, he's got a competitor that he's a plumber. His competition, what they did was they created 4 different websites, all trying to rank for different variations of a plumber and what they do for their services. So he kind of followed suit. And what I was preaching, he was going with exact match domains. And we know how that goes nowadays. But my suggestion to him was make one site and drive it home there instead of trying to rank for everything and have multiple sites. Because Google can see that each site is from the same location as far as, business location.
Totally. Well, and in the local space, I mean, it's a little bit crazy because, you can only register one website with your business location, right, through Google Maps or Google My Business. And it's going to be extremely hard to rank multiple websites in the local results, if it's even possible at all. And if you do it, you probably are violating Google's guidelines and
Absolutely.
then could get kicked out of those.
Yeah.
If, however, but even in the case, so let's say it is one of those rare cases where the local results, either you're already dominating the local results and you're looking for additional listings in the web results, or you are in the or the local results aren't coming up for one reason or another, right? Google's biasing to just show the web results in your space, which happens rarely, but occasionally.
Mm-hmm.
Even in those cases, I would still go after the single site. And the reason is the ability to grow your domain authority and to rank for, keyword after keyword set is far greater when you have one domain versus an exact match. I think exact match is just, it's so hard to rank a new website, even an exact match domain for a keyword set, and then to keep up that ranking on that domain and to earn lots of links to that domain that Google's going to count, and then to, and you don't benefit all your other websites. So if I own, plumbing1.com and plumbing2.com and plumbing3.com, all the links that come to plumbing3.com don't help any of the content on plumbing2 and plumbing1.com to rank better.
Yeah.
Versus if I just have plumbing.com, every link that comes in helps every other piece of content on that domain to perform better. And so, you just get these huge aggregated benefits.
Yeah, and you really can't go after that exact match because of semantic and and local, mobile search and
right. Well, and the click-through rate is something else I worry about.
Right.
Where depending on the exact match domain, some exact match domains sound credible enough to earn the click, but any of them don't. Right. Like that luxury kids clothing search that I just did. You would be much more likely to click on, Neiman Marcus or Barney's or Nordstrom, which you've heard of, rather than luxury-kids-clothing.net. It might be a great site, but it just sounds super sketchy.
Yeah, it does. Definitely.
Yeah. We did have another question come in. It's actually from my hometown, good old Memphis, Tennessee.
Nice.
They ask, what is the best way to account for rank braining when optimizing your website?
Yeah. So I would say, generally speaking, RankBrain is just a continuation of what we started dealing with a few years ago when Hummingbird came out, right? Essentially, it's a query interpretation manipulator system. So, it's basically Google saying these words have this meaning, and therefore we should show results that serve the searcher's intent behind this meaning. So if I search for luxury kids clothing, they're going to show me brands that they associate with, for example, right? They're showing me designer kids clothing and baby designer clothes and, luxury children's apparel, right? So they get the idea that all of these words and phrases kind of mean the same thing, and therefore they're expanding the potential group of what could be relevant to the searcher's query. So it's almost less that you have to do something in order to optimize for RankBrain, and more that RankBrain makes it such that you, and Hummingbird, makes it such that the content you create and the searcher intent that you serve is more important than it was historically versus raw keyword matching.
Yeah.
Which prior to 2012 in Google, you really had to do a ton of raw keyword matching and raw keyword use in order to be successful. Nowadays, that is still advisable, but not nearly as critical. And you can rank for a much broader set of search queries that have the same meaning and intent behind them than you could previously. So the way that I think about RankBrain and Hummingbird influencing SEO tactics is like, hey, maybe instead of creating a luxury kids clothes, luxury children's apparel, designer children's clothing, European designer kids fashion, all those different pages, I'm just going to create one page, right? One page that serves all of those intents rather than an individual page to serve each, slightly modified version of the keyword phrase.
Right. And that looks more natural too, anyway.
Yeah, totally, right? It's way better for content and for information architecture and for conversion rate optimization. You used to have, back in the old days of very heavily keyword focused SEO, you used to have these ridiculous menus, or footers where you'd look at them and go, wait a minute, why are there 10 pages all doing exactly the same thing with slightly modified footer? Like, it makes no sense to a user. And the answer was people were just doing it for SEO. But I think Google's gotten way smarter, and that's a huge benefit to us too.
Yeah. So you're listening to Search Talk Live. If you want to call in, don't be shy. We got Fishkin on the line. The number is 855-722-0006. Option 1. Again, that's 855-722-0006. Option 1. And let's see. Got something else for him?
Yeah, I mean, this is a question I always like to ask. I know you're really a student of the industry. Is there anything that you've kind of seen, read about that, we should be on the forefront of our minds, that we should be looking out for, any changes happening or big impacts to the industry and what we do? Is there anything that you see or have read about that might be upcoming?
Mobile.
Yeah. Always. It's, one of the great things about and frustrating things about being in our industry is that, you take 2 weeks off and it's like taking a year off in another field.
Yeah.
I think a few of the things that are really interesting that are upcoming, Google at their recent big event in Mountain View made some announcements about changes that are happening specifically to AdWords and local search and the advertising options around those. I think if you are in local, you should probably be paying close attention to that. Google also released some stats and figures about the growth of mobile, local voice search, and some adoption of, a few like Internet of Things type stuff, specifically around cars, which I think are getting to be big users of search and maps. And I think that those are going to have some interesting impacts over the next few years. Tactically, if you're in the web marketing field, particularly if you're focused on content, I think there's a great number of new advertising options for you. That seems to be where a lot of the focus has been lately. So, Instagram opened up their ad platform earlier this year. Pinterest ad platform is now open, has been for like 6 or 9 months, and available to anyone. Google has offered some new stuff, particularly around custom audiences with RLSA. Mm-hmm. And they're doing some more with that, especially with, in particular with local, but actually for virtually any type of search, where you can upload your custom email list and then serve particular people in particular markets with particular messaging. That's pretty powerful. Facebook just did the updates to their custom audiences, where now they're allowing you to create, the lookalike audiences and to target even people who are not on Facebook. So, you can now serve advertising through Facebook for non-Facebook users, which is pretty amazing that they're having these platform openings. So I think that as a even as an organic marketer, a lot of us are probably need to be paying attention to what's going on in the paid marketing, paid content amplification, paid influencer marketing fields, because the opportunities there just keep blowing up. I mean, I was seeing that I think it's Pocket and Nuzzle are now offering opportunities for sponsorships in their newsletters to targeted audiences, which is pretty sweet.
Mm-hmm.
There's a million ways where you can kind of attract audiences with dollars that in very, very customized, very specific ways. And those are big ones.
Yeah, we're down to about 4 minutes in the show. One thing that makes me nervous, Rand, is what I call funnel jumping. They've got ads that, show me the Best Buy television, 60-inch, but, buy that one. Goes, skips everybody else and says, here it is.
Yeah, interesting. Are you talking about like right in the search results?
Yeah. With the way they were talking about with the home appliance and stuff, where they're saying, that stuff. I mean, there's no listings or anything. It's just, okay, give me the branded product and go with it,
Yeah, and they are trying to disintermediate websites in a lot of spaces, right? So they've been trying in flights, and they were trying in hotels. Mm-hmm. They did a bunch of experiments a couple of years ago around Google Shopping and product search right in the results. And I think this is something where if you are not paying attention to the SERP features that are appearing in your keyword targets, mm-hmm. you're probably investing a bunch of SEO effort into terms and phrases that, have much lower likelihood of click-through rate.
Right.
And this is one of the reasons, this is somewhat self-promotional, but I think it's critically important that everyone who's doing SEO pay attention to what we at Moz call opportunity score.
I thought you were going to say Keyword Explorer.
yeah, Keyword Explorer. Yeah. But you can do this yourself, right? But
right.
Where you just look at the SERP and you say, geez, there's 3 ads on top, then there's a knowledge graph on the right-hand side, then there's a site links, box, and then there's images. The click-through rate, even if you're ranking number 1 for this, is going to be really low.
Yeah.
And so therefore, it's probably, even if it has a lot of volume, it probably is not worth the same investment and attention as a keyword term or phrase that, has got kind of more of that classic 10 blue links mm-hmm. style going on, or just has, a few ads, or just has, maybe the right side knowledge graph or something like that. And so I think that's considering SERP features and considering what your click-through rate opportunity is going to be is essential to doing SEO intelligently. And as Google keeps adding these features and testing things out, you've got to go to where the clicks are.
Absolutely. Well, Rand, we're about out of time. I want to thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate it. It's always a pleasure having you on here.
Oh, man, I love doing this stuff with you guys. Just call me back.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in. And guys, thanks for your support, listening to the show. Tune in every Tuesday, 3:30 to 4:30 Eastern Standard Time, where we have different guests every week.
Yep.
Next week, we have
Mark Trappahagen from Stone Temple Consulting.
Yes. So we're going to talk about how search and social work together. And we heard I just watched a video before the show that kind of talks about Google actually using social signals, which was kind of interesting. Yeah. So you got to watch that video.
Yeah, I'll watch it. Well, thanks again, Rand. We really appreciate it. Thanks for everybody. Hey, Moz. Yes, and it's Moz Month. We ended Moz Month. It was an awesome month. You can go to searchtalklive.com and check out all the past shows from Moz Month. Please do so. Awesome stuff.
Sign up to our mailing list and follow us on Twitter.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Have a good one.
Search Talk Live is a presentation of the Robert Palmer family of companies.